Okay, on lesson 414, we're studying mean absolute deviation, and we learned that the acronym, we can call that MAD. So we've been learning what mean absolute deviation is and kind of what that number tells us, and can I compare when I see a couple of different mean absolute deviations, can I give some idea of what that means? All right, so here's just one example, and this is a pretty complex skill here. For the Chapter 4 test, the mean absolute deviation for Mr. Thomas's class was 6.75, and for Miss Turner's class, it was 3.2. All right, so what does this tell you about the test scores in the two classes? What can I tell about these classes and their test scores? All right, so guys, remember the mean absolute deviation is you find the average test score of the kids in that class, and then you're going to see how far every individual score in that class deviates from that class average, or how far are they away from that average. Okay, and in this case, Mr. Thomas's, the number is almost more than double what this class is. So there's some big differences here in the difference between these two classes. Okay, guys, one thing we got to remember with mean absolute deviation, you're not going to be able to tell if Mr. Thomas's class or Miss Turner's class did better. All right, because we don't know if the deviations were on the good side away from the class average, like you had a lot of high ones that deviated away from like a lower class average, or if you had a high class average and some kids did lower and deviated away from it. So you don't know if it's high, that doesn't mean it's better or worse. Okay, what it does tell us is that the kids deviated more in this class. They're further away from the class average on average. All right, in this class, I would say in Miss Turner's, more kids were close to the average because this is a smaller deviation. They were closer to that class average. So that's one thing I would write is Miss Turner's class. Let's go in Miss Turner's class. A lot of the kids tested very closely to the overall class average. Okay, in Miss Turner's class, a lot of the kids tested very closely to the overall class average. For example, if the class average was 75% on this test, her average mean absolute deviation was only 3.2 away from that. Now, we don't know if it's 3 point high or 3 points lower. It could be a combination of both. Again, so you can't really tell if it's a good or a bad thing. Whereas this class, if it was 75%, kids were like 6% possibly away from that, either high or lower or some combination. So again, I can't really say one class did better, one class did worse. All I know is that this class, they kind of all tested closer to the class average because their deviation's low. They don't deviate too far away on average when I average all those individual kids' deviations away from that initial class average for the whole class. Whereas this one, they would have some people that are further away. Either they did way better or way worse. We don't know for sure, but they definitely had some kids that more deviations away from the class average, maybe some more outliers that are a little further away.